So I've seen the whole evolution of this journey from analogue right through to where we are now, from the perspective of both a creator and, for the last decade or so, a technologist. So, machine-readable rights. Clearly a subject to set your soul on fire. However, it should do, because actually it is your road to freedom. It's your passport to being able to make the most of your creative work and to take part in the wide world of creative talent that embraces all types of digital offerings. Images are just one, video, text, documents, designs, illustrations, mashups of the whole thing, and many more things that I'm sure that as yet we don't know about. But we are at a really crucial point on this road, and adaptation and change are absolutely needed. But the good news for most of you, for the most part, is that what you need to do is understand and embrace the concepts and the goals, and it's up to us, the technologists, to actually make it happen, and to make it happen as easily and painlessly for everybody as possible. So I thought it would be pertinent to take a very quick trip down memory lane, just to look at how we got to where we are now, and to see what we need to do to move forward. So, story time. The early pioneers of our industry, some 40 years ago now, actually did a lot of things right. Trade associations such as BAPLA were formed, standard ways of doing business and managing rights documented, material was available to newcomers on how to set up and run a picture agency according to the best practices available at the time. As you know, IPTC came into being, and in the early 90s, the concept of IPTC headers took root as Adobe introduced it into Photoshop, something that changed all of our lives. In some ways, the very nature of the business, handling and managing gazillions of tiny things, transparencies, forced the need for creative souls to be unusually organised in order to stand a prayer of a chance of a success in their businesses. But organised, many of them became, with similar, if not standard, usage criteria and working practices being adopted across the board. Intricate numbering, cataloguing and cross-referencing systems ensured that any image could be plucked from the ranks of hopefully not too dusty filing cabinets the moment it was needed. Barcode readers and unique barcode numbers within each picture library were the cornerstone of how it all worked. And actually, they in fact were the beginning of machine-readable rights and metadata. The digital age came along in the 1990s, and technology providers such as Capture wrote systems that helped bridge this transition from analogue to digital. And before long, in one form or another, picture agencies had electronic systems managing their businesses. In actual fact, each library or agency had really become a digital copyright exchange of its own, managing and trading rights, and sometimes interoperating with agents and partners and portals. Lots of little island states with their own private passports and identities for their subjects and parties, in this case being the images, the photographers, and the clients. The importance and shortcomings of the internal numbering systems used by libraries was starting to be felt. When images were sent off to agents to go in a catalogue, or later to go on their website, and sales were made, hooray, back came the usage reports. And quite often, they contained completely different unique identifiers, leaving account staff tearing their hair out as to how on earth they could link them up with the right photographers. Of course, technology providers such as Capture then wrote all kinds of little exchange modules in their software so that it meant that whatever identifier was entered would resolve back to the correct photographers and everybody would get what they were due. And that kind of solved the problem, but only really sort of. So, when in the wake of the Hargraves Review in 2011, organisations such as, for instance, the Technology Strategy Board started talking about the need to create digital licensing frameworks, we in the picture library industry were scratching our heads and thinking, we've been doing it for years, what on earth are they talking about? However, what was really happening was rather like a great slow-moving river meeting the sea. Things get very different when you're out in the open, choppy waters of the ocean, where it's every man for himself. The analogy here, of course, is the images we could once control so well were out there pitching around in the digital sea, on the internet, often having managed to escape from home without any passport or identification, or embedded metadata somehow getting washed away, perhaps in the uploading process. Confusingly, applications and processes were making it possible for buyers to mash up images and other picture library agency assets into all kinds of other media, making licensing harder to describe and determine. So it might be tempting to withdraw from this scary world, but of course we do want our creative assets to be part of the mix. We are creators after all, and it is our business. While we were ahead of the game in some aspects by being so organised, we also built very robust, self-contained islands, and the eventual need to break out of this isolation and be able to travel and trade in the big wide world passed us by. That, in a way, has made it hard to understand why now we need to adopt global standards and to manage rights. These, of course, must be machine readable, as automation is essential when dealing with digital images. There are just too many of them to do otherwise. But adapt them we must if we are to protect the ownership of our creations and also the ability to maximise their potential. This could mean the potential available in known markets today, but also to fully participate in licensing opportunities of the future that are yet unknown. We need to be well placed to take advantage of all the things that are likely to crop up in the future as well as today. In actual fact, the notion of machine-readable rights should make most of you sigh with relief. The onus is on us, the technology providers, to create systems that take the pain out of managing rights through providing automation in our systems. We at Capture and others are committed to promoting standards such as Plus, so important to the industry, and also to making it easy as possible for the industry to technologically adopt them. Plus was ahead of its time, and I for one recognised immediately way back the sort of joined up thinking that was going on in this enormous task. Now, as the digital economy debate escalates and the need for greater automation becomes clear, Plus is at the centre as a standard that has independent governance and also embraces the full spectrum of the industry, from creators right through to end users. The end users being very important to bring with us on this journey. Remember, it's a standard. It's not here to control or dominate in any kind of way. It's a standard to be embraced when other registries are being built, so that they can all talk to each other and be interoperable. So the message from the authorities is very clear. Use it, i.e. get our house in order, embrace what we've got out there, and put it into practice to protect our copyright, or lose it. So, what would it take to create a perfect joined-up world where there is no loss of metadata, no loss of copyright information, no old assets without proper information, no, or anyway much fewer orphan works, no confusing identifiers for assets and parties, no infringements either by mistake or design, no lost or confusing licensing terms. A world where there's actually an ethos of granting use, even if it's for free, rather than being able to just take it. So, in the real world, often the following occurs. Metadata, copyright and release information is lost. Licensing information is not recorded or passed on, or embedded information is completely out of date. More complex copyright needs are not properly accommodated. Licensees, such as publishers, completely lose track of what they have and how they can use it. Licensors and creators then lose out. Illegal uses inevitably occur. Temperatures rise, time, money, energy lost. Creative and inventive spirit is of course curbed, and very importantly, respect for digital ownership is disregarded and devalued. So, the key to the solution. The key, I believe, lies in the following. Persistent, unique identifiers for every digital work and party involved, including images, text, video, audio, books, PDFs, designs, illustrations, and very importantly, creators, agencies, licensees, everybody in the journey of an asset, from its birth to when it's used by many people, pass-through agents, sold, every person or agent along that way. 2, standardised licensing terms so everyone knows what rights they have and that clashes can be flagged up. Cloud-based registries that are interconnected and that conform to agreed standards, so information is interoperable and can flow across system boundaries. If you're building a registry, why would you not make it compatible with others? It's only the sensible thing to do. These registries should hold information as well as control the global unique identifiers. And this is really important so that this data can be updatable and dynamic, linking back to the assets through the global unique identifier. And ideally registers, I know Plus has this, should have the ability to have certain private areas as well in their metadata setup. Asset security services, such as visual recognition for easily identifying assets found via the internet, crawling and tracking usages, helping tie down infringements. But also making it easy. This is so important. Technology companies that build software systems that support standards and interact with registries and security seamlessly. And that's really what this session is all about, so thank you all very much.